I hope you're doing all right. Welcome to part one of the, well, I guess if you're, I've broken these, the week 13 up into two different groups, XX, female, XY, male. And this is the last lecture there that we have. Congratulations, you guys have done awesome. You really have. Not easy, but you're almost there. Don't take your foot off the gas. Don't you dare. You've worked so hard. Let's just keep on going. And to no further ado, let's go, shall we? The female reproductive system in its totality here. We're going to list and describe the structures and functions of the female reproductive system, explain the hormonal control of the female reproductive system and the two reproductive cycles. We're going to describe structure of the breast, lactation, and various methods there of some birth control. Okay. The whole point, the roles of the female reproductive system: produce eggs, secrete hormones, nurture and protect the developing baby during 9 months of pregnancy. And reproductive organs include ovaries, uterine or fallopian tubes, the uterus, the vagina, okay, vulva, mammary glands, okay. Ovaries there, these guys produce the oocytes. Okay, those are the eggs, okay, as their way out, as well as hormones, estrogen, progesterone, which have completely different functions, which we'll get into. Uterine tubes, fallopian tubes, this is the transport the oocyte there, okay, to the uterus. It is also the typical site of fertilization. Okay, not implantation. That happens there in the uterus. But sometimes there you can get an egg to implant in the fallopian tube. It's called an ectopic pregnancy. It's not a good one. We don't want the egg to implant in there. We want it there to go to the uterus via the fallopian tubes, where this is the site of implantation of the fertilized ovum, fetal development, and this is where labor happens. Okay, the muscle there, the uterus there, stimulated by oxytocin, gets those uterine walls a rumbling. The vagina, the site of childbirth and intercourse. Okay, mammary glands synthesize and secrete milk. Okay, here's a shot of the female reproductive system. Okay, well, what we have there is the urethra and the bladder. Okay, as you can see, and then behind there, okay, you have the vagina. There's the cervix there, the opening there to the uterus, okay, where baby will be. Baby would be inverted. The head would be down here. And when baby's ready to go out, pressure on the cervix stimulates their uterine walls to start contracting. Okay, moving on up there, there's your uterus. Okay, lots of muscle in there, lots of lining. Okay, which increases every month and decreases every month. Okay, ovary. Okay, see these little finger-like projections, which I'll show you. There's a really good movie there that you guys can watch. These are called fimbriae. Okay, and then there's your fallopian tubes. So the eggs come out of here, travel across the fimbriae, down the fallopian tubes, and eventually there to the uterus. Okay, just another shot here, anterior shot. Okay, there's your fallopian tubes. Okay, all right, fimbriae, and just getting into the whole idea here of what's going on here. Okay, you're into fundibulum, fallopian tubes in here, and there's your fundus of the uterus. Kind of, what other organ do you remember has a fundus? The stomach. You know, that higher up portion there, that kind of, yeah. You'll notice there the outside perimetrium, the muscle, okay, of the uterus there, the myometrium, and then the inside lining there is called the endometrium. Okay, so the fallopian tubes, about 4 to 5 inches in length, smooth muscle and cilia, transport the oocyte, lipids, and glycogen. Little microvilli for sure. Okay, the myometrium, contraction during labor and pregnancy. Endometrium there, the inside attachment there for embryo, and forms the placenta. Okay. Just shove that over. That's what I like. The uterus there, the perimetrium there on the outside. External serosa surrounds the fundus and the body of the uterus. Okay. You'll endometrium. Do you know a certain issue there that can arise? It's called endometriosis, where you can get growths happening anywhere. Okay, it's quite devastating. Quite devastating issue there. So have a look here at the fallopian tubes. Okay, there's 3 segments. There's your infundibulum. Okay, proximal there to the ovary. This whole area right in here. Okay, you'll see infundibulum. You can blow up, and again, pause and blow these videos up. Well, don't blow them up, but blow them up, right? There's your infundibulum. Okay. Your fimbriae movement brings the oocyte into the tube. Okay, those finger-like projections there, they kind of scoop up that oocyte and bring it into the fallopian tube. The ampulla, most likely site of fertilization. Okay, you'll see it's about halfway through along the fallopian tube. Okay, and then you have the isthmus. Okay, of the uterine tube, connects the uterus. Okay, to the fallopian tube, is distal there to the ovary. Okay, ovary, infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus. The whole thing is fallopian tube, and there's your uterus right there. Okay. Diagram shows left side of the uterus and upper portion of the vagina, left side of the uterine tube. Okay, the broad ligament has been removed. You can see in the cadaver right here, showing the uterine cavity and cervical canal. Okay. Always interesting there to show the cartoon next to the real. Real is very difficult to identify. Cartoon is always nice. Okay. You can see everything listed here as needed. Primary role of the reproductive system is, of course, to produce haploid gametes, right? You remember there our DNA is 2N, okay? Sex cells, there only 1N, okay? Half of our DNA. Production of gametes is called gametogenesis, involves meiosis, not mitosis, okay? The whole idea there that 2 parents can have 4 different children that look nothing like each other. Nothing. And you almost think, did these children come from these 2 parents? Well, they did. And that's the whole point, is that every sperm cell, every egg cell is different from the other. And it all stems from an evolutionary ideology there called genetic variability. Because you do not, the same 2 parents are going to have children, but you do not want those children coming out identical, because if there's a disease out there that attacks one child, well, then it will wipe them all out. We don't want that, right? So genetic variability, every single one of those sex cells, sperm and egg, are completely different. Never have they ever existed in that form ever in all of the universal history. Okay, so everybody is unique, except for identical twins. That is the oddball, right? So here we're talking meiosis, where diploid germ cells go through 2 cell divisions to create haploid gametes. Okay, and you get the whole crossing over. You remember that there from Bio 121. Ultimately there, 23 chromosomes, spermatozoa and ova. Occurs in the gonads, testes, and the ovaries. In males, it's called spermatogenesis. In females, it's called oogenesis. And you'll see, it starts off with a diploid germ cell. So this one here has double the DNA, and then it splits into 4 halves. Think about that. It has double of your DNA, and then it splits into 4 different halves. It's where you get the crossing over and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, because you want to mix and match all of these. And you do not want the children being identical. Okay? Just makes for a longer, happier species, right? So what do we got here? The ovaries, they contain what we call the ovarian follicles. Each follicle contains 1 ovum. Primary oocytes are developed within the follicles, which form during infancy. Women begin puberty with about 400,000 follicles. way more than enough, right? You figure there that one egg gets released every 12 eggs a year times 30 to 40 years, 30 years of being able to release eggs. The follicles mature during menstruation. Mature follicles release an egg cell. Welcome to ovulation. Okay. Oogenesis, things to know, begins in the fetus during embryonic development. Diploid germ cells called oogonia, analogous there to spermatogonia, which we'll cover there in the next slide there when we deal with males. At birth, the ovaries contain about 2 to 4 million primary oocytes, but only about 400 of them ever become ovulated in a single lifetime. Okay? You almost think it's this overkill, right? And why are the body doesn't do things haphazardly. There's always reasons why the body does things, especially evolutionarily. And you almost think, why are there 2 to 4 million primary oocytes available, but really only 400 eggs ever get released in a female's lifetime? Interesting. Last cell division does not occur until the secondary oocyte is fertilized. Okay, and you guys can pause the video here, follow this along here. Okay, so here is your 46 diploid number. Okay, again, we're dealing with meiosis, right? So this is 2N, and what the eventual, and in spermatogenesis there, you end up getting 4 sperm cells, okay, from 1. Okay, they got half, 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 half. Remember, this is 2N. Okay, so you get half, 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 but you'll see there when you're talking females, you get only 1, and you see what happens there when we get these cell divisions there. You get, from one of these guys, you'll get 1 mature ovum, but then you get 3 polar bodies. It divides into a secondary oocyte and a polar body, and then this will divide again into a mature ovum and a polar body, this one here, and these polar bodies just get discarded. So you see, you'll just go on there and just follow it along. After puberty, 1 primary oocyte reaches maturity and is ovulated about once a month until menopause. Okay, and here's your first meiotic division completed just prior to ovulation. Now we're into a secondary oocyte, and as we said there, this is half. Okay, half of the double-stranded. Good. Pause it. Have a look. Now we get into the good stuff here. Okay, if that wasn't good enough, now we get into some hormonal control and regulation. Cyclical changes in the ovaries result from changes in the gonadotropin secreted by the anterior pituitary gland. Okay, levels of estrogen increases, hits a peak, causes ovulation. This is called an estrogen surge. Okay, a number of hormones control the female reproductive cycle, and unlike male hormones, female hormonal secretion occurs in a monthly cycle. A regular pattern of increases and decreases in the hormonal level. Okay, this is last month's menses. Okay, blood release. Okay, and then the whole process starts again, and then you'll see the lining there of the uterus starts to increase and increase and increase and increase with the anticipation of pregnancy. And if pregnancy happens, the walls are ready to accept. If pregnancy does not happen, then you will get another menses, and the walls of the uterus will decrease. Okay, and you'll see it happens. We call this there the uterine cycle. Okay, the whole purpose there is to mature an egg monthly for fertilization, typically about 28 days. You'll see that what we have here, we have the follicular phase, okay, which this is the development of the follicle itself and how it grows, okay, and then the egg is released. There is your ovulation, and then travels down the fallopian tubes. But the covering, you see that covering around the egg itself? This isn't the egg, that's the egg there. But that covering, okay, it plays a role. So the egg and the covering here, what we call the corpus luteum, it plays a role, okay, on hormonal control and dictates what goes on in what we call the luteal phase. We'll get there. Okay. The ovarian control estrogen there promotes maturation of the eggs, makes the female look female, secondary sex characteristics, maturation of the reproductive organs, breasts, characteristic fat distribution, okay, widening of the pelvis, okay, remember that from Bones way back in the day, okay, female pelvis tends to be wider and a little shallower, menstruation, okay, closure of the epiphyseal disc there in the long bones, okay. Progesterone. So we've got estrogen and progesterone. Works with estrogen to establish the menstrual cycle. Okay, now we're on the tail end of the whole ovarian cycle. Helps maintain pregnancy. Prepares the breast for milk production after pregnancy. Progesterone levels always need to be understood in relations to estrogen levels. Progesterone is dominant in the luteal phase, as stated earlier. So you've got the ovaries, and we're talking the function. And you'll see where it all begins. You'll see what's going on here. Okay? And the cells surrounding the oocyte are called follicular cells. Okay? That's these guys here. There's your follicular cells. Okay? A woman is born with about 2 million ovarian follicles, which is nature's way of ensuring the continuation of the species. The broad and ovarian ligament anchors the ovary. And you'll see what's going on here. There are those follicular cells. And you'll see how the atrium here expands. Okay. Turns into a Graafian follicle. Okay. And then eventually, boom, the egg comes out. All right. Down. And you see it gets swept up by the fimbriae that are up here and into the fallopian tube. Here we have the corpus luteum, though. From those follicular cells, they're not done yet. Okay? This is where the progesterone comes from the corpus luteum. Okay? Which eventually will turn into the corpus albicans. We'll get in there. So hopefully there you've had a chance there to see the movie. The movie's great. It goes through the whole, exactly what we're talking about here. So when a primary follicle, you'll see there a single layer of these granulosa cells. Okay? And then we move on there, you'll see these granulosa cells develop until we get what's called zona pellucida. All right? And that expands right there, and you'll see that the surrounding cells differentiate into theca cells. Okay, they're just a proliferation of these granulosa cells, and then you get the development there of the antrum. See, kind of a fluid filled. Okay, there's your zona pellucida. Okay, right in there, and you see your antrum now is quite big. Granulosa cells, and these are your theca cells. Okay, around the outside. Okay. Now we're getting into the, this is the secondary development, and then the mature follicle itself. There's your ovum, okay, and surrounded by these cells, and what happens there, it explodes out, okay. Take some of these cells with them, okay, and then what's left over will turn into your corpus luteum. Okay, and then eventually there your corpus albicans there. So the several follicles mature each month, but usually only one fully matures. As the egg matures, meiosis reduces the number of chromosomes from 46 to 23. At the same time, the follicle enlarges. A fluid-filled center, okay, is formed. There's your antrum, okay, and the follicular cells begin to secrete estrogen. The mature ovarian follicle is known as a Graafian follicle. Okay, that's where we're at right here. Okay, the Graafian follicle looks more like a blister on the surface of the ovary there. Okay. The follicular phase, the development of the follicle. Okay, we've got gonadotropins. There's follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. big time. Okay? The follicle-stimulating hormone triggers maturation of the follicle. The ovum becomes a Graafian follicle. Follicle secretes estrogen. The estrogen nourishes the ovum and the uterine lining. There's a mid-cycle surge of luteinizing hormone, ovulation, the extruded ovum swept into the fallopian tubes. The follicular cells become the corpus luteum. All is right there, okay? And you'll see there the whole development of the follicle, all right? The luteal phase, as opposed to the follicular phase. Now, this is after ovulation. Okay, the oocyte's been released. We're left with the corpus luteum. I don't know if you can hear in the background there's about 10 people that are cutting grass. Of course, it just makes great sense. Right while I'm making a video. But there's a good little movie there. Please pause the movie and have a look. All right? That's a great little video there that it goes through basically the whole process right here. It's a really good video. Make sure you watch that, okay? Starts with ovulation and ends with menstruation. That's what we're talking about here. So the luteal phase starts with ovulation and then ends with menstruation if fertilization has not occurred. The follicular cells become the corpus luteum. So these are the follicular cells there. Okay, they become the corpus luteum, which means yellow body. The corpus luteum secretes progesterone, which enriches the uterine lining. You're building up that uterine wall, the endometrium. Okay, the inside lining there, preparing for pregnancy. Okay, in the event that fertilization occurs, prepares the breast for milk production and pregnancy, and further builds up the endometrial lining of the uterus. The luteal phase progresses differently in the pregnant or non-pregnant state of implantation. Okay, it all depends whether the egg has been implanted or not. Okay, this is a great little slide here showing you there the levels of different levels of follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone at different times. Initially, at the start, okay, of the follicle-stimulating hormone is higher levels. But eventually, as time progresses there, the luteinizing hormone, okay, as you saw in the video there, watch that video, please. It's a good one. You'll see there that the amount of luteinizing hormone increases until the point where it actually overtakes the amount of follicle-stimulating hormone, and therefore that signals ovulation. Psh, okay? And then all the levels drop, and you'll see there the development there of the corpus luteum, the amount of progesterone, and then eventually there to the corpus albicans. All right, great little great shot there. And as well, you can see I've got the amount of estrogen and progesterone. Okay, and here is your endometrial lining. Okay, just breaking this down here. This is last month's menses. Okay, and then the endometrial lining there is quite low, and then during the follicular phase there, okay, where the egg is developing, and then you have ovulation. And you see the endometrial lining is increasing. Now there's your follicular phase. Here's your luteal phase, right? And just having a look there at the amount of estrogen. So menstrual there, you're talking about the endometrial lining is shed. Proliferative there, the estrogen thickens the uterine lining. Secretory there, you've got progesterone enriches the endometrium there. Okay, in preparation for implantation. The corpus luteum, is it dead or alive? Okay, non-pregnant, it is dead. So without a fertilized ovum, the corpus luteum changes into the corpus albicans, where it's just dead tissue. The uterine lining loses hormonal support and sloughs off. This is called the menses of the period. Plasma levels of ovarian hormones will decline. Cycle starts again as declining ovarian hormones trigger follicle-stimulating hormone. In a pregnant individual there, the corpus luteum is alive. Fertilized ovum secretes human chorionic gonadotropin, okay, which sustains the corpus luteum. Okay, very, very good point. We need that corpus luteum to its life to be extended. So welcome to, there you go, HCG. secretes progesterone and estrogen. Hormones sustain the endometrium and keep it at the level that it's needed there. Early embryo implants in the endometrium. Okay. Now you guys will remember these. There, the anterior pituitary. There's your hypothalamic releasing hormones stimulate the cells of the anterior pituitary to release the hormones. The nerve impulse of the hypothalamus stimulates nerve endings in the posterior. You will remember that. And a little bit of review again. Okay. And you guys have saw this there last week. That's why I'm giving you guys a little bit of review. There's your pituitary negative feedback. Okay, the hypothalamus sends a releasing hormone to the anterior pituitary, which isn't very far. You almost think that they could just kind of knock on the door and instead of sending a hormone to here, but that's what it does. And then it sends another hormone to the target endocrine gland, which then produces a last hormone there. You saw the same shot there last week. Okay, the whole idea of what is happening, but this week there we're going to focus on the gonadotropins. Okay, pause the video here and watch the movie, will you? It's a good one. So hopefully there you've had a chance there to watch the movie there, and you'll see that we're kind of dealing with this section right in here, and you'll see that gonadotropin releasing hormone is released there from the hypothalamus there, which stimulates luteinizing hormone as well, and follicle stimulating hormone, which then, okay, pregnancy occurs, then you're going to get progesterone, which is going to turn everything all off. There's your negative feedback, okay, as we talked about there here, okay, and just a nice little shot, kind of the same slide as what we saw there last week, but now we're just focusing on here. There's your gonadotropin releasing hormone, there's your luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, okay, located there in the anterior pituitary, which then signals these guys here to get busy. Okay. Primary effects of gonadotropins on the ovaries there. Okay, there's your follicle stimulating hormone. Stimulates several primary follicles to begin growing. Initial estrogen secretion by developing follicles. Upregulation of luteinizing hormone receptors. Some of this stuff here might be a little heavy, but if you can follow it along, there's a great movie. Where did that one go? That one there, have a watch of the movie. Goes through all of it. Wonderful little movie there. Okay. Then you've got luteinizing hormone stimulates the completion of the follicle and oocyte growth. Okay, estrogen secretion there by the follicle. Ovulation causes mature follicle to erupt, expelling the ovum. Okay. And then we have luteinization, which causes the formation of the corpus luteum. Okay, from the ruptured follicle. Progesterone and estrogen secretion there by the corpus luteum. Okay. Control of ovarian changes. Luteinizing hormone brings about the following changes. Completes growth of pre-ovulatory follicles. Okay. Sets in motion processes that break down connective tissues of the ovarian cortex. Prompts formation of a corpus luteum temporary endocrine gland. Blood levels of progesterone rises after luteinizing hormone surge. Control of changes in the uterus and gonadotropin secretions. So here we have effects on the uterus of increasing estrogen levels, postmenstrual phase, proliferation of endometrial cells, growth of endometrial glands and spiral arteries there of the endometrium, increased water content and myometrial contractions. Effects on the uterus of increasing progesterone levels. Okay, that was estrogen. Now we're at progesterone levels. Okay. Endometrial gland secretion prepares endometrium there for implantation, increase water content of the endometrium, and decrease myometrial contractions. Okay. Gonadotropin secretions controlled by both negative and positive feedback mechanisms, as we mentioned there earlier. Positive feedback controls luteinizing secretions. Good. Go back to that video for sure. So we've got control of follicle-stimulating hormone and estrogen secretions. The sudden and marked increase in the blood's estrogen level that occurs late in the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle is thought to stimulate the hypothalamus to secrete gonadotropin-releasing hormone, GnRH, into the hypophyseal portal vessel and adenophysis right there. All right, so we're talking about the front. And a negative feedback mechanism controls the anterior pituitary secretion of FSH and ovarian secretion of estrogen. A high blood level of follicle stimulating hormone stimulates estrogen secretion, whereas the resulting high estrogen levels inhibit FSH secretion. Okay, and so you have a look here there. If there's low levels of estrogen and progesterone there in the blood, this is detected there, okay, by the hypothalamus, which checks it against a set point. You guys remember that there, negative feedback. Okay, so what happens is start producing their follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, which then travel there to the ovaries and increases output overall. That's how she works. Not too bad at all. This is a great one right there. Please have that somewhere. That is a great little slide. Major events in reproductive cycle. And you should be able to kind of follow this along pretty much for the 10 steps. Okay, the anterior pituitary gland secretes FSH and luteinizing hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates maturation of a follicle. The granulosa cells of the follicle produce and secrete estrogen. Estrogens maintain secondary sex traits. Estrogens cause the endometrium to thicken. The anterior pituitary gland releases a surge of luteinizing hormone, which then stimulates ovulation. Boom, the egg is released. Follicular and theca cells become the corpus luteum, okay, which then secretes estrogen and progesterone. The estrogen continues to stimulate uterine wall development. Progesterone stimulates the endometrium to become more glandular and vascular. Estrogens and progesterone inhibit secretions of FSH and LH from the anterior pituitary, so it shuts itself off. Okay, there's your negative feedback. If the secondary oocyte is not fertilized, though, the corpus luteum begins to degenerate and no longer secretes estrogen and progesterone. As the concentration of hormones from the corpus luteum declines, blood vessels in the endometrium constrict. The uterine lining begins to disintegrate and sloughs off, producing menstrual flow. The anterior pituitary gland is no longer inhibited and again secretes FSH and LH. The reproductive cycle repeats. Great little slide there. Love it. The hormone control of female secondary sex characteristics. Here we've got the hypothalamus releases GnRH, okay, gonadotropin releasing hormone, which stimulates the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary secretes FSH and LH. FSH stimulates the maturation of a follicle. Granulosa cell of the follicle produces and secretes estrogen. LH stimulates certain ovarian cells to secrete estrogen precursor molecules. Estrogen are responsible for the development and maintenance of the secondary sex characteristics. Concentration of androgen affects other secondary sex characteristics, including skeletal growth and growth of hair. Progesterone, secreted by the ovaries, affects cyclical changes in the uterus and mammary glands. We're almost done. You're doing great. Some terms there to know. You might see them on a definition on a test. And here we've got female breast and lactation. Mammary glands, there tends to be about 15 to 20 lobes. Alveolar glands located in these lobes, they secrete colostrum and milk into the lactiferous ducts. Nipple and areola suspension ligaments there. You guys can have a look at those. Might be a question or two on that. Hormones of lactation. Here we're talking about milk production, estrogen and progesterone. Okay, these prepare the breast there for lactation. Prolactin. Okay, suppressed during pregnancy by estrogen and progesterone, stimulates milk production after birth. Okay, oxytocin stimulates the release of milk from the breast as well as uterine contraction. Okay, the milk letdown reflex. Sensory stimulus, suckling, the posterior pituitary releases oxytocin. So as soon as baby gets his mouth on the nipple, the body senses it, oxytocin is released, stimulating breast milk. Diseases, Okay, there's a couple of them here we'll get into. There, endometriosis there, next slide. Ectopic pregnancy, we kind of talked about it. This is where the fertilized ovum implants in the fallopian tube. Quite devastating. Scarring and blockage of the fallopian tubes, often caused by repeated sexually transmitted disease exposure. Major cause of infertility. PID, pelvic inflammatory disease. Genital tract opens directly into a sterile pelvic cavity. Okay, so just got to be careful. Bugs can get in anywhere. Okay, endometriosis. Here we're talking the endometrial tissue grows outside the uterus. Yes, you heard me right. Endometrial tissue now grows outside the uterus on other organs or structures in the body that are completely unrelated to the uterus. Most often, endometriosis is found in the ovaries, fallopian tube, tissues that hold the uterus in place, outer surface of the uterus, and lining of the pelvic cavity. Okay. Last slide here, we've got PID, an infection of the female reproductive organs, which occurs when sexually transmitted bacteria spread from vagina to the uterus, fallopian tube, or ovaries. Yes, those bugs can get in there and they can cause great damage. Pain in your lower abdomen and pelvis, heavy vaginal discharge, abnormal uterine bleeding, pain or bleeding during intercourse, fever, some chills, pain, difficulty urinating. So that's where we've got right now. I hope you guys are doing well. We'll move over to the male side in a little bit. Or if you just came from the male side and you've already watched it, then you're done. That's it. That's the whole course. But if not, I'll see you guys on the other PowerPoint. Thank you so much.